Hey, what up, YouTube? This your boy Hot Rod Zini. I'm coming at y'all with part 2 to sleep paralysis, science or spirit. And I owe y'all an apology. That last video was like a year old. It was like a year ago. I said I was coming with part 2. You can see my dreads and got a little longer. Got a few more tats or whatever. This was a long time ago, seemed like. And to be honest, I wasn't sure if anybody was even paying attention to them videos because, you know, I mean, I didn't think people really paid attention to that. But when I looked and I was like, dang, 176 views and some comments, man, let me get on my job. So here I am. I'm coming with part 2 to the video. And like I said, this is going to just talk about some of the things that I went through, which is why I believe what I believe concerning, you know, sleep paralysis. And if you've seen part 1, then you know how I feel about it. You know, and I know I saw one comment where a guy was like, he wants to believe that it's more science than spirit, you know, because he don't want to believe that a negative entity is actually coming into his room. And I understand that. I ain't trying to change nobody's views on nothing. You know, you can believe whatever you want to believe, but per my experiences is why I believe what I believe. You know, so I'm gonna share some of those with y'all. Now, first of all, I'm gonna say this: my first experiences with sleep paralysis were not at the magnitude that they were when I got intrigued by it. Alright? The first time I had sleep paralysis, I woke up and I couldn't move. You know, it might have been around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. That was it. And yeah, it was very frightening. I was afraid, you know, because when you paralyzed, you like, man, why can't I move? So that was natural. That's a natural fear. I know it's some people that say the reason you're afraid is because you can't move. Well, with me, that wasn't 100% true. In the first experiences, yeah, that's what it was. That's a natural fear. But I have experienced, like, I don't know if y'all experienced what I experienced, but I had experienced an unnatural fear. Something that it's like your senses got to be heightened to be able to even experience that type of terror. It's a type of terror that should kill a man, you know. I'd have had a double-barrel shotgun put in my face, and it wasn't as frightening as this. I'd have been in several car accidents where I saw the vehicle right before it hit me, and it wasn't even close to the magnitude of terror that I experienced in these experiences, you know, or in this particular experience that I'm going to tell y'all about. So that's not 100% true with me. When I started having sleep paralysis, like when it first began happening, then, you know, that's what it was. I'd wake up and I couldn't move, and it's a frightening experience. But I actually saw the scientific explanation for it, and I was like, oh, okay, that's all it is? Nothing to be afraid of. So from that point on, anytime it happened, like if I wake up and I couldn't move, then I'd just be like, oh, that's just sleep paralysis, you know, whatever. You know, the scientists say this. So I'm just going to go back to sleep, and when I wake up, it's going to be all good. And that's what happened until about 2, maybe 3 years ago, when I actually experienced it for what it really was. See, it was actually a point when there was no fear at all. I'd wake up and couldn't move, and there was nothing to be afraid of because I knew what it was. You know, so there was no fear whatsoever. No natural fear, no unnatural fear, nothing whatsoever. There was no fear. It was just acceptance. Oh, this is just sleep paralysis. 3 years ago, something, I don't know, something changed on the inside of me. I don't know what this was all about, why it happened, when it happened, but it was a 3-week event. You know, it happened 3 weeks in a row, and it happened on the same day, 3 weeks in a row. It was around Friday night going into Saturday morning, 3 weeks in a row. Alright, the first week, it was Friday night. I woke up, or Saturday morning, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, somewhere around that time. I woke up, I couldn't move. Acceptance. You know, first thing that come to my mind is, oh, this is just sleep paralysis, whatever. I'll go back to sleep. But this time, it was slightly different. It was something that I hadn't quite experienced before. This time, there was a vague sense of fear. It was very vague. And, but it was extreme enough for me to be like, why am I feeling this fear? I'm not afraid of anything, you know what I'm saying? Why am I feeling this fear? It was a fear that I couldn't explain. I couldn't put my finger on what the fear was coming from or what was causing the fear. It wasn't because I couldn't move. Like I said, I experienced this several times to a point where I wasn't afraid of it no more. So it was different. I was like, where is this fear coming from? Why am I experiencing this? I didn't know what the cause of it was. Alright? So next thing that happens is, on top of the fear, I started vaguely sensing another presence. This was the first time I ever experienced it. It was another presence that I was experiencing or sensing. And next thing I know, something that looked like a shadowy mass or whatever sort of just materialized or appeared in front of me. Some kind of shadowy mass. And I just laid there and I just looked at it. Next thing I know, it was the next morning I was waking up, whatever. And I dusted that off my shoulder because it wasn't a real extreme event. I dusted it off my shoulder like, I don't know what that was, but I woke up and I'm good now, so no big deal. Very next weekend, same day, I want to say the same time, alright? I wake up, alright? And when I wake up, I'm in a state that some people would call a dream, but to this day, I'll take it to my grave that this was not a dream. This was something else. It was dream-like, but it was something else. It wasn't quite paralysis yet. It led to paralysis, but it started out as something else. But in this, I'm just going to call it a vision. It could have been out of body. I don't know what it was. But in this experience, I was standing in my living room. And it was my living room. Like, when I dream about my house, when it's a normal dream, it don't really be my physical environment. It'd be like, it could be the Waffle House. It could be McDonald's or something. But in my mind, it's my house. It wasn't like that. This was my living room. I'm standing in my living room. My furniture. And the light was on. And with my light bill, I wasn't going to let that slide. I was like, why is a light on? Don't leave lights on. So I went to turn the light off in my living room. Next thing I know, the most extreme feeling of terror that I can imagine, that's possible, just dropped on me. Extreme terror. Like through the roof terror. Like you can't explain the type of terror. And I wasn't sure where the feeling was coming from. Right? And next thing I know, the terror, just like the week before, the terror took on a personality. And I started sensing an individual with the terror. And it's hard to explain, but I was sensing that whoever this individual is, they coming for me, yet they already here. And I was sensing that I know them, yet I never met them. I can't really explain it. It was crazy, but I was sensing it, and I ain't gonna lie. I'm the type of dude, like I'd like to say I ain't scared of nothing, but on this day, I was afraid. You know what I'm saying? I was afraid. And in this vision, I started walking from the living room. I was so afraid that I just wanted to get in the bed and get under my sheets. I ain't gonna lie. I'm a grown man saying this. But I never experienced this type of fear. So I left out of the living room and I started heading through my kitchen now. I'm talking about my actual physical environment. I go into my room with the lights out like it's supposed to be. I get into my bed. And when I lay down, I'm so afraid. Like, my dog never sleeps in the bed with me. But I was so afraid that I wanted him to get in the bed with me. And some type of dog-like creature appeared next to my bed. It couldn't have been my actual dog. I don't know. But I grabbed the collar and I pulled it up into the bed. And when I pulled it, it looked like he was dead in my hands. And I was like, man, you are no good to me in this state. Next thing I know, there was a transition point. It went from this to full-blown paralysis on a level that I never experienced before. And judging by the time, I'm going to have to make part 3 to follow behind this. Because it's a lot more experiences that I got to tell y'all about. But, yeah, it went to a level. It was a transition. I was no longer in that whatever dream / out of body, whatever. Now I was in full-blown paralysis. It was like I never experienced before. I felt like I was drugged. Like I said, all the times I ever experienced it before, it was nothing compared to this. It was heavy this time. It was like I was drugged. Like, the feeling was uncomfortable. Like, even if I had woke up and there was no terror, no fear, just the level of paralysis that this was, it was so uncomfortable that it would make anybody uncomfortable. So I'm here now, and I'm full-blown paralyzed. All right. Next thing I know, here comes that terror. Matter of fact, the terror never left. The terror was already there. But now the terror took a whole nother level. It went through the roof. And now the individual that I was sensing, that I felt like was already here, this cat just come walking through my door like he owned the joint. You know what I'm saying? This cat just walks into my room like he owned the joint. But he was invisible. But some kind of light was on to where I could see everything clearly. I could see everything in my room, like everything. It was there and it was in place. And it was like a reddish tint light, not quite like the light that you see right now. It was like a reddish tint to the light. And this cat comes walking in the room. He invisible, but I didn't have to see him. You know, the energy that was coming from this dude, the malevolence that was coming from him was enough for me to understand that whoever you are, I don't like you, you know, and you are what's causing this terror that I never experienced before, this unnatural terror. Like I said, you got natural terror, then you got unnatural terror. It's natural terror when somebody, boom, pull a gun on you. That's natural, you know, that's within the means of a human being. But this type of terror is another level, you know. It takes something extra to be able to experience this type of fear. So this cat come walking to my room. I'm trying to speed this up. This cat comes walking in my room. He moving around. And like, I don't know how y'all are spiritually, but with me, you know, the spirit of God in me was conflicting with this thing. Okay? It was conflict. Like, I immediately started speaking to it. Even though I was terrified, I was speaking to it like, hey, you got to get out of my room. You don't belong here. I know God. God lives in me. You have no place here. I'm talking to this thing. It never spoke. It just moved around the room. And I was terrified just by that. You know, it just moving around the room. And next thing I know, I couldn't speak no more. My mouth got bound up. I know somebody know what I'm talking about, where all I could do was mumble. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all I could do, right? So, in my mind, it's like something spoke to me and said, hey, even though you can't open your mouth, this is a spirit. It understands your thoughts. You can speak to it mentally. And I'm going to leave off right there. I'm going to part 3 because I'm going past my time. So y'all hang in there with me and we're going to finish this.